This is a story that Jim's been following for a while now. It has been no secret that the construction of the Sydney LightRail system through George Street, through the CBD, was a complete mess for years. I feel so sorry for the businesses that didn't survive. Now, some businesses may well have come through the other side now, that it's been completed and the construction's been over now for a year and businesses are getting back on their feet. But some of those businesses didn't survive. And we'll talk about the taxi compensation package a little later in the show. But the compensation of those business owners, to be honest, wasn't quite as generous. Today is the first day of a hearing, a class action in the Supreme Court. 400 people are taking part in this. They're suing for $400 million, and the suit's been coming a long time. The case was first lodged back in 2018, but it was delayed, as everything was, because of COVID. Well, it's now underway in the Supreme Court. Angela Vithoulkas is, of course, a former small business owner. She's also sat on the council, and she's been the driving force behind this, and she joins us on the program. Angela, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much, Clinton. It means a lot to us all that we have this opportunity to speak to you, and I really want to give a big shout out to Jim and the Drive team, because they really have followed us closely and taken our calls whenever we've had another chapter to add to this nightmare of a saga.
I think it is important to raise this one against Angela, because, I mean, I walk down George Street almost daily, and people will have forgotten about the disruption that was caused, particularly to businesses through that construction period, because it seems everything is now back to normal. But for some businesses, life didn't go back to normal, did it?
It didn't, Clinton. I'm at the court case today in the Supreme Court building. I've just stepped out to take this call. And all day we've been presenting our case. And during this time, we've all been reliving the nightmare from minute to minute about what happened from October 2015, when George Street was shut down and construction began, when this New South Wales Liberal government that supposedly cares about small business began a construction project that devastated and decimated businesses all at once, that was meant to take 3 to 6 months in each section of the construction project, and instead took nearly 4 years, because they ripped up the entire length of George Street, following right through Surrey Hills, Kingsford, Kensington. They devastated this Sydney. They destroyed families. People lost homes and they lost lives, and we will never get over it, and we are seeking justice.
In terms of a class action, obviously your lawyers have decided that there is a case there. That's why they're going all the way to the court system. Is that because negotiations with the government just went nowhere, broke down?
Well, in 2016, the then Transport Minister and the then Premier of this state told me that we had no case to answer, that this was all just how things went when construction of infrastructure projects went down. So, Clinton, I spent the next 18 months finding a lawyer and a legal funder to put together a class action. So our lawyers and the legal funder thought there was a great case to answer here and took on the matter, and we have since 2018, when we lodged in the Supreme Court, myself and hundreds of business owners have been fighting this case, thanks to the legal funder and the lawyers.
Because I ask about negotiations with the government, because often what, of course, happens is an out-of-court settlement, or governments and businesses, for that matter, don't like to drag these things through the court. Is there the potential now that it is before the court, the government will go, okay, we probably should bring this to an end?
We would welcome a settlement, Clinton. We would welcome the New South Wales Liberal government, who, again, I'm going to say they're all about small business, to talk to us and to help us get over this nightmare. When you don't know how you're going to put food on the table or a roof over the head of your children, when you've lost the family home or you've suffered a divorce, when you've got hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of debt because of this light rail project, when you watch all of your customers just vanish overnight, the least they can do is sit down and talk to us. But apparently this is all falling on deaf ears.
In terms of, now, this might be out of your ballpark, but the light rail construction of the light rail through Parramatta is continuing. And if anyone's been along Church Street in the last couple of years, you know that the businesses along Church Street have been terribly affected as well. Are they being compensated in any way, to your knowledge? And if not, would potentially they be able to join your action?
They haven't been compensated in any way. They were lied to as well. because the then Transport Minister, Andrew Constant, said, we've learnt our lessons from the Sydney LightRail and we won't be doing the same things to Parramatta. Well, here is a classic example of how the New South Wales Liberal government has not learnt their lesson. They do not run projects that protect people and that are resilient. They are destroying more businesses in other suburbs. And the Parramatta people who are suffering from the same problems we have, of course, have a case to answer, and we have been trying to help them get a class action up as well.
I know you've been going through this for 5 years, but does your legal team give you any indication now of how long the legal process would go for now that it is before the courts?
So the court has set aside 6 weeks for this matter to be heard. It is a lengthy, detailed matter, and it deserves the time for the court to understand exactly how much pain and suffering we had, and also through the discovery of documents to see exactly what this project was all about and where it fell over. I mean, today in court it was mentioned about the issues with the utilities that were found underneath George Street and the lack of planning around all of that. When the utilities companies were telling government that it could take up to 18 months to relocate essential services, and that all fell on deaf ears, and the government went ahead and tore up George Street anyway, knowing that construction was going to blow out. This is why the government needs to answer for their actions.
Well, all
if
the best.
They don't listen to all of these things, how are they ever going to learn to operate better and not have the double costs that blew out on this project?
And given the situation in Parramatta, I think that time is of the essence, that really it's an issue that needs to be confronted now. And you're
Writing's on the wall.
Yeah, certainly doing
Writing's
that.
on the wall.
Good on you, Angela. Good luck with the campaign.
Thank you very much.
131873. Angela Vithoulkas, of course, is a former councillor on Sydney City Council and owned a cafe in George Street. It's there no longer, and partly because of the light rail construction. Do you actually use the light rail from the eastern suburbs through to the CBD? Do you use it much? Is it actually better than the bus service that effectively it replaced? Because they've now reduced many of the bus routes that did run through the eastern suburbs have been cut back because of the light rail. I catch it from time to time, and I've got to say, I find it hideously slow. Really, really slow. Now, I know that's because it is subject to the traffic lights in the CBD. But honestly, half the time you'd be faster walking. Now, obviously, you're not faster walking from Kingsford or Randwick through to the CBD. But if you're catching the light rail from, say, the QVB to Circular Quay, you might as well walk, generally. Was it really worth it? And now, we're now seeing it built in Parramatta. And if you live in Parramatta or you go to the Parramatta shops a fair bit, can you imagine when that opens? I think it's going to open within the next 6 months or so. It's getting close. Are you going to use it? Or should have we just stuck with buses in the end? You got a thought on that? 131873.